Hello there. Since Brexit, the trade rules for Northern Ireland have been the main bone of contention in the negotiations. Now, once again, there's apparently a breakthrough that provides for a new tariff system. In the negotiations between the UK government and the EU over the controversial Northern Ireland protocol to the Brexit deal are on the verge of a crucial breakthrough, they say. We've come a long way, is what diplomats in London confirmed about the progress made in the secret negotiations. After that, both sides want to present a compromise by the end of February at the latest on how the future movement of goods between the Northern Irish region and the rest of Great Britain should be regulated. Something is happening there in the dispute between London and Brussels over this Northern Ireland protocol. Ireland's Prime Minister Leo Varadkar is optimistic things will get moving. He, as a representative of an EU member state, is willing to act flexibly and judiciously to modify the Northern Ireland Protocol to gain broader support in Northern Ireland. That's at least what he told the Irish Times. Then there's the very real prospect that a deal will come about between the EU and the United Kingdom. Several British newspapers reported on Tuesday that an agreement could be expected within the next 2 weeks, and today some papers here even talked about this week. As is so often the case in Northern Ireland, semantics play a crucial role there. The negotiators must accommodate Jeffrey Donaldson, the leader of the largest unionist party, the DUP. Well, it's supposed to be Democratic Unionist Party, but enough to be able to sell the result as a victory. And under pressure from hardliners in the unionist camp, his outright rejection of the Northern Ireland Protocol has maneuvered him into a corner that he can't get out of without the help of the EU. According to a newspaper report, an agreement to settle it is now close, as I said. And I still have my doubts. I'm really honest about this. But the broad framework of the agreement would be clear now and still has to be finally approved by the British government. That's at least what the Telegraph newspaper reported, citing people familiar with the matter. The deal between the UK and the EU would mean that goods travelling from mainland Britain to Northern Ireland would no longer have to go through customs by just using red and green lanes there. But according to the report, a new wording on the controversial role of the European Court of Justice, the ECJ, is also expected. Accordingly, the ECJ can only be appealed to as the last instance in disputes between Great Britain and the EU. At the beginning of February, the British newspaper The Times reported on an agreement in the negotiations on the controversial Brexit Northern Ireland Protocol already. I talked about this in the video at that time. This Northern Ireland Protocol provides for special customs rules for Northern Ireland in order to keep the border between the still British region in the north and the EU state of Ireland open, also to prevent the Northern Ireland conflict from flaring up again. However, the agreement has created a de facto customs border in the Irish Sea for goods, separating Northern Ireland from the rest of the UK in this case. The pro-British DUP is up in arms, fearing it will separate Northern Ireland from the rest of the UK, at least on a trade level. Donaldson complained that this violated the Good Friday Agreement and the Union Act of 1800. Well, the legal avenue has been exhausted, and last Wednesday the Supreme Court in London confirmed that the protocol was legal. As long as the protocol is in place, however, the DUP is boycotting Northern Ireland's regional parliament and government. And due to the Good Friday Agreement of 1998, this must be formed jointly by the two strongest parties on the nationalist and unionist side on an equal footing. Actually, there should have been new elections long ago, but the British Minister for Northern Ireland, Chris Heaton-Harris, has repeatedly extended the deadline, and 2 weeks ago even to January 18th in 2024 to give the parties, as he says, time and space for negotiations. Donaldson has set 7 conditions to return to government. 3 of them are relatively easy to fulfill. For example, London has proposed a red and green lane for goods from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. Well, it was a proposal from the EU years ago, but still. Green for goods that are intended exclusively for Northern Ireland, such as British supermarket chains there, and so they do not have to go through customs. And red for goods that are to be exported to the Republic of Ireland, and with that to the EU, and are therefore subject to customs regulations. The customs border would then remain, but one could argue that it actually only affects goods for the EU. More difficult is Donaldson's call for the people of Northern Ireland to have a say in laws that affect them. That means constantly updated EU internal market directives that automatically apply to Northern Ireland but not to Great Britain because of the Northern Ireland Protocol. On the other hand, there is Sinn Féin, which advocates secession from Great Britain and reunification with Ireland, which, as I repeatedly say, is part of the EU. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak wants the matter off the table. However, should the EU shoot across the board, Donaldson's room for maneuver would be exhausted. Then there would be no prospect of reinstating the institutions in Belfast for the foreseeable future. In that case, London would have to take over direct rule again. But the DUP doesn't want that either. However, whether the compromise proposal will end the long-standing disputes between London and Brussels depends crucially on whether British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak can push through the deal against the hardline Brexit advocates in his party. His internal party critics could make his political survival very difficult. That was a warning by former Deputy Prime Minister Michael Heseltine, who is campaigning for rapprochement with the EU in the Conservative Party. And so this is once again an announcement of a proposal and a new agreement, but I will only believe it when I see it black and white. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.